Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez, and today we're going to be discussing the ankle pick. So I have a class scheduled for Wednesday night at Sunny Dojo, and we're covering the ankle pick. The ankle pick is one of my favorite takedowns, and I don't normally just use it for the takedown. I rarely do a whole lot of takedowns. We don't do a whole lot of stuff on the feet. We're limited on space. Gracie LeMace is on a smaller end when it comes to mat size. So when you have 10, 15 people on the mats and you guys are doing takedowns, it gets a little potentially unsafe. So we don't have a whole lot of that. And additionally, when you're training at 5 a.m., it's a little bit of a big ask to have people falling down and dealing with takedowns. So we don't do a ton of it. When I look at takedowns, I like doing things because I'm not a judoka, where I want things that are low risk and high reward. So if I fail the position, I'm not in a completely dominated spot. Like if you can picture, let's say someone goes in for a double. Sometimes if you miss that double, you're underneath someone sprawling their hips and all of their weight on top of you. It's a nasty position to be in. Let's say you're undersized and you're trying to do a double on someone a little bigger or someone who knows how to apply hip pressure better. So it becomes a headache to have to deal with that. So I tend to, because I don't have all the time in the world to develop a strong judo-like or wrestling-like approach, that I have dabbled or spent time on things that are chained to the grips that we normally get, collar, sleeve, and then things that are high reward, low risk. And if I mess them up, maybe I'm in a guard position anyway. And that's really where the ankle pick kind of developed from. So there are positions that I like from standing, and I love a good collar drag. Again, low risk, high reward. I like a good snap down. Again, low risk, high reward. And I like things that maybe they off balance, but I don't have to be super technical on. So the ankle pick became one of my favorites. I also do ankle picks from other positions that we don't really consider. I will ankle pick you if I'm seated on my butt in butterfly and you have one knee up, one knee down. Ankle pick is there all day. I'll ankle pick you from if I'm seated on my butt and you're standing. I'll ankle pick you if we're both standing. So there's the same mechanics that work from standing, work from the other two positions that I like to use it in. So it's not just a stand-up technique. So because I gravitated to the ankle pick from standing, I started seeing it in other positions that I normally wouldn't have thought about it. So when we're trying to do wrestling from the knees or the butt and you're trying to wrestle up, it is readily available more often than you really think. And you start hitting it on people, they second guess the positions that they want to try to get you in. So there's often times where I'm in on my butt and someone's like one knee up, one knee down, or even they might be standing over me and I have cross collar. I could start with maybe a pull to get them to start respecting the grip. And when they start to pull away, I hit the ankle pick. If they have one knee down, one knee up, I'm ankle picking the one with the knee up. And it works out in a way that forces them to really be paying attention. Because anytime I have a collar, I can take you collar drag or pick. Anytime that they have the one knee up, I can, and I don't have a grip, I can still get the ankle pick. So for me, the ankle pick is super versatile in all three of those phases. I don't have to change a whole lot up. It's still the same mechanics. And to break down some of those mechanics, let's picture we're both standing. I lead with my right foot, meaning my right foot is forward of my left foot, and I'm in a staggered stance. That means that my right hand, my power hand, is also forward. Typically, this is the most common stand-up variation that you're going to encounter. You're going to encounter some of the opposite stance from time to time, but let's just focus on the most basic for now. Because we're leading with the right foot, his right foot would also be leading. And if I can put the way I teach this, and if you're going to be there on Wednesday, this is going to be a little helpful. I put dots on the ground. I have these little circular colored dots, and they work really well on mats because they don't. And I put these down, and I have a student stand up, and they're in that staggered stance, and they have, again, right foot forward, and I put a dot that they step on with their right foot. I put a dot they step on with their left foot, and then that ends up being the base of the triangle that we're going to end up using to understand which way we can throw or pull people. If I have cross collar, whether I'm standing, kneeling, or on my butt, and I want to pull with a collar drag, I have to understand which way to pull effectively. So I put a third dot at the apex of that triangle. So again, if you can picture the 2 feet, one staggered forward than the other, his right foot, those are 2 dots. That's the base of the triangle. And then if you can draw 2 lines to a forward apex of that triangle, I put another dot there. And I just have them imagine what that triangle looks like in front of them. They have the 2 dots they're stepping on, and they have the dot in front of them off to my right. And that is the pull that I need. So if I have a cross collar, whether I'm kneeling, sitting, standing, that is the angle that you want to pull into. If I pull directly towards me, they have the right foot to balance on and counterweight my pull. If I push directly back, they have the left foot to counterweight on and push into my push. So when I start taking them with the collar drag to the right, angled almost to my right hip, if you can imagine that, that's the empty space. That's the space that I'm going to be pulling in. And if they are not able to step into it, they're going to be collar dragged. They can also post their hands, but that's the weak spot. Inversely, the same happens on the back end. If I can make another, and I drop another circle behind them at the apex of that triangle that their feet are making, there's going to be an angular apex, not directly back, to my left. And that's going to be to their right hip. So when I do ankle picks, I'm aiming that way. I am not aiming straight back. And that's going to be super important when we start doing this at the workshop, because if I do the ankle pick and I pick the right leg and I start pushing straight back, they have the left leg to lean on, to bounce on, to counterweight what I'm trying to do. It becomes a lot more difficult. We can come up for a single leg, but that's not the objective here. So I need to go trying to drop them onto their right hip, the apex of the triangle. So if you can visualize this, and when you see it in person, it helps out quite a bit. You can start getting students to understand the angle in which I'm trying to get everything. Now, if we're discussing the grips, you can do the very common collar sleeve. I prefer my right hand to be collar, and that's the initial grip that I get, the very common collar sleeve version. But I slide my hand all the way up behind their neck, and I make an anchor out of that with my thumb in the gi, my 4 fingers wrapped on the outside of the collar, and my wrist is bent, so the meat of my thumb is literally on the back of their neck. And that acts as a hook that will counter their posture. It'll force them to bend when I start lowering my levels. And it creates a tension in my arm, because in my arm, there's a bend in my elbow, and then there's a bend in my wrist that forces them to have to bend down with me. My left hand is grabbing a sleeve. You can do this in various ways. Some people like spider guard sleeve. Some people will actually grab the wrist itself. And if we're doing no-gi, that's what we're doing. If we're doing no-gi with the hand in the collar, instead of thumb in the collar, I wrap over like a collar tie, and it acts the same way. With the sleeve, I prefer grabbing the seam that runs down the forearm of the gi itself and grabbing that, curling my 3 fingers, my pinky, ring, and middle finger to the inside. My pointer finger isn't doing a whole lot in that sense. And then I'm using my palm to kind of guide where I want the wrists or the hands to go. If they're trying to reach for my collar, I'm pointing that down, but I'm not necessarily grabbing spider grips. Can grab the whole forearm. I can grab the wrist, but I really like that seam grip. It feels very judo-like. My first act when I do this is to lower my level so there's a bend in my knees and I'm lower as if I'm going to shoot for a double. And I'm going to keep them there. My hand does not, when I lower, stay at that same height. Sometimes when I have students do this, they have that hook grip over the back of the neck in the gi. And when they lower their levels, they let their hands stay at the same height. So they're kind of reaching up. We don't need that. We want them to bend. So I curl my elbow, curl my wrist, and I bend and I pull them down as I lower the levels. So now they have to kind of meet my height. And this works beautifully on people that are taller than me, which is literally most of the class because I'm 5'4". I'm acting in a way that will allow me to walk in this stance, but it's lowered. My knees aren't touching the mat, but I'm about halfway from when I'm standing upright and when I'm trying to really kneel, like if I was about to drop my knee to the ground. It's that middle ground. So I'm able to walk left, right. I'm able to walk forward and backwards pretty comfortably. It's not so deep that it's uncomfortable to step or to retract a step. That middle ground. And it might be different for all of us. If we have knee injuries or back issues, that might look a little different. So keep that in mind. When we're walking, I start to walk backwards. People are going to shuffle step. The more experienced people are never going to step their back foot forward and their front forward back and kind of keep stepping like we do when we walk. They're going to shuffle. So the front foot will come forward about half a step. And then the back foot will come forward about half a step and they're right back in their stance. So we're going to walk and we're going to match that. So because I'm crouched and they're crouched, and again, this works beautifully when they're taller because it's a little more uncomfortable for them. We're both going to be bent at the waist. My knees are going to be bent. I'm down in my crouch, but I'm able to walk any which way I want. I'm going to walk back a few steps and kind of get a predicted step, and you'll start to be able to time they step this distance every time. So on the second or third or even fourth, that's when you can lunge forward. When they step, I immediately launch because that's when that lead foot is going to be the most heavy. I'm going after the right foot, the lead foot. When I crouch down, sometimes I change this up, but more often than not, my right knee leans forward. It's bent, kind of like you're going in for a double or a single. My left hand leaves the collar and then it cups behind the ankle. I am not grabbing calf. I am not grabbing knee. I am not grabbing the section just below the calf. I'm going as low as possible. Anything higher risks them kicking the foot back. If I go calf or if I go knee, I'm going to fail at this. So at the lower you can get, and I will meet the mat, and then my hands will cup the back of the ankle. Back of the heel, actually. Ankle's good, heel's better. Once I do that, my left hand is no longer pulling. It is not creating any motion. It's not contracting. It's doing absolutely nothing other than cupping. And it's preventing him from stepping back. Once I get to this position, and I've lowered his level with mine, I then use the right hand to push him diagonally to his right hip. Again, we cannot go backwards. If we go backwards, they can hop. They can brace against the opposite foot. They can get their balance. They can hop around. It becomes a problem. I want to go to my 10 or 11 o'clock, that right hip, and I literally take the grip that I have over the neck and launch it almost like I'm throwing a ball real quick. And I launch it off to my left and diagonally to his hip, and he falls. I don't need to lift that foot. Once he starts to fall, naturally it's going to come to me. And then we're going to end up sometimes in headquarters. Sometimes we're going to end up in that chest over chest home sequence that I like. Sometimes we're going to end up in half guard. Sometimes we're going to end up in potentially like an open guard, and they might hook under the knees as I come approach, but they're going to be on their back at an angle. They're not going to be flat. And I get to come up, keep that leg, because it makes it harder for them to come up. If I lose the leg, they can not sprawl, but they can kind of get the legs back under them and they can work their way back up really quickly. So keep the leg. It forces them to have to kind of accept the position that we're in. The other way I hit ankle picks is when I circle. So we're going to have the same grips. We're going to have the same setup. Instead of walking backwards, I'm going to turn. And I have to pull the sleeve grip, and I have to step in a circular motion to my right, which forces their leg to circle and meet where I am. That's harder to describe in words, so it's going to be a little easier in the workshop or when I put out the videos. But I'm no longer walking backwards. It's like a half turn, and they, in order to meet me, have to turn, and it forces the leg to come forward and then get heavy. When I get to that point, I do the exact same thing that we did for the first version. I meet the mat, I hook just behind the heel, and then with the grip around the neck or head, I launch that and I push them diagonally backwards, and we end up in the same spot. Those are my two favorite ankle picks. They're, again, high reward, low risk. They offer me a threat from the position, because then I can couple that with single leg, double leg. I can attack even the opposite. You're going to have moments when you do both of these versions and maybe you're a little late and they pull that heel back. When in the position, I miss that. They pull the heel back. They have all of their weight on now their left leg, and their right leg is still in the air being pulled back. Instead of accepting failure, I then go grab their left leg with the same hand that I would have grabbed their right. So I reach over diagonally, grab that one. And there's going to be a little bit of a twist here. My collar hand drags down, and then my ankle pick hand pulls up. So almost like I'm changing directions on a bus, and I'm turning that wheel. It forces the weight to come forward and around. They fall into their back, and you can come up to knee on belly. You can come up to north-south, side control. So we have options. And even if I fail at both of those, which is rare, let's say he's quick enough to kick one back and then hop off the other, and I miss. If I completely mess this technique up, I still have the collar. I still have the fact that I've gotten really deep. I can just sit back onto my butt and start playing guard. I can treat it like a guard pull. I've messed up the technique. They're not on top of me. Their weight isn't on top of me. They haven't sprawled on top of me. They haven't made me have to be punished for this failed event. Now I can play guard, which is what most of us want to do anyway. So it's not a bad thing. It's just, I want these threats to keep people honest when we're on their feet. And then if I fail at them, we're right back into the thing that I wanted to do anyway. There's also a Yoko Tomonagi that I love hidden from here. A little bit more complicated. I might have to do that in a video instead of a podcast episode. But it works beautifully off of that same setup and works really well. Another aspect that I love to do is if we're in this and they know that ankle picks are coming, sometimes they keep their legs back and they're more parallel to each other. When they're parallel, if you can imagine the two dots that we were talking about on each feet or each foot, now because the feet are parallel, I'm at the apex of the triangle. And then directly behind them is the second apex. So because I'm directly in front of them, I have the same grips. Their feet are parallel. We can now take advantage of snap downs. And I take the two grips, specifically the one behind the neck, and I start just yanking them down, and I step back immediately so they don't run into me or grab my legs. and I'm stepping back and yanking, stepping back and yanking. And after the second or third, they end up on their hands and knees. We can start attacking guillotines. We can go Kimura grips from there. We can circle around, try to take the back. There's a whole lot of things we can do there. And, or the other option that I love is when they counter, maybe they try to posture up from the snap, I yank forward and I go in for the double. So it's a little tiny ecosystem of events that I can create that force them to have to respond to me in a way that gives me other openings. So ankle picks for me, if I was a white belt, is one of those things that I would start to learn. I learned Sianagi early on, and looking back at it, probably wasn't the best use of my time. It's a throw that if you fail, they're on your back. It takes a lot of energy. You have to create quite a bit of movement. It's more technical, especially for a jiu-jitsu person. So for me, ankle picks are beautiful. The fact that you can use them in different scenarios, the fact that they're high reward, low risk, the fact that if I fail, I'm playing guard, the fact that they play nicely into other endeavors like the ones I mentioned. It's a beautiful technique to learn and to add. It's useful for gi, no gi, pretty versatile. So if there's any one takedown that I kind of push white belts to understand more of, it's this one. And I wish I had started this earlier. I'm hoping that this kind of helps break down the position a little bit, the risk reward, the things that I'm looking for, the simplisticness of it, the fact that it's versatile. But if for some reason the verbal breakdown wasn't quite enough for you and you had some question about it, please let me know. I have videos on these, but hopefully I can express this well enough. For those of you that will be here on Wednesday at Sunny Dojo, this is the exact same thing that we're going to be going over. Depending on how much time we have, we'll go into some of the options that I also like to go into that I went to at the very end. But anyways, if you have any questions on this or anything else jiu-jitsu related, please hit me up. DFM.2099 on Instagram and Threads. I also have a free school program. You can sign up, look at all my videos, ask questions. We do technique of the week on Tuesdays. Any questions, please hit me up. I don't want anyone feeling like they're kind of lost and they don't have anyone to ask. I'm a stranger, but maybe I can answer some questions. Maybe I'll point you in the right direction and just help you out a little bit. Until next time, thank you so much.